This is why you should never take walks alone at night. In 2007, a girl was on a late night walk when she looked at the end of the road and saw the silhouette of a man moving around very strangely. It was like he was doing the waltz, but he was moving towards her, so she was sketched out, crossed the road, and went the other way. After a couple minutes, she turned around to see what he was doing, and he was right across the street from her, now staring up into the sky with a huge grin on his face. Now totally creeped out, she turns around and walks about a half block before checking again, and to her horror, he's now crouched down right behind her. But luckily, he stands up, turns around, and kind of hobbles away. And then she notices something. The man had turned around and was now sprinting directly towards her. She runs to safety and now just hopes she never has to see that smiling man again. You're about to hear one of the most disturbing true stories on the internet. In 1921, a German farmer woke up to find a deep set of footprints leading from the forest right up to his back door. Whoever had come to his house had not left yet. After making sure it wasn't just his family, he searched everywhere on his property and his house everywhere, and he could not determine who made the prints or where they went. A few weeks later, his maid abruptly quit, saying that every time she's alone in the house, she hears demonic voices in the attic. Shortly thereafter, he and his family start to hear the voices too. When no one's heard from them in a couple days, the neighbors go over to check and they find them in the barn. One by one, each of the family members made their way down to the barn where they were systematically murdered and stacked in the corner. To this day, no one knows who or what is responsible for this crime. This is why you should never open your door for strangers. In 2013, a woman let her dog out to use the bathroom one more time before bed. After only a few minutes, she starts hearing scratching on her door, which is typically the sound her dog makes when he's ready to come in. But it just seemed way too soon for him to be done being outside. So she decides to look through the peephole to make sure it really is her dog. But what she sees is terrifying. A deranged-looking man is right outside her door, staring intently at her door handle, waiting for it to turn open. As she's looking in horror, unable to do anything, he starts scratching at the door as hard as he can, never leaving his gaze from the door handle. She manages to stifle a scream, she backs away and realizes her dog is still outside. So she goes to the side window, but there's no sign of her dog, and so she goes back to the door to see if maybe the man's moved. He hasn't moved. This is why you should always look under the toilet seat before you sit down. In 2003, over a 5-day period in London, 3 women showed up to hospitals with the same mysterious symptoms. They say they woke up with these horrible bite marks on the backs of their legs, and then while they're at the hospital, they become paralyzed and die. Despite their similar symptoms, the women had nothing in common except that they had recently been to the same pub. Authorities immediately shut it down and do a thorough search inside of the pub, but can't find anything deadly, until one of the detectives goes to use the pub's bathroom. As he's about to sit down, he thinks he sees something moving in the toilet, so he gives it a little kick. Hiding in the toilet was one of the world's largest and most poisonous spiders, the Brazilian wandering spider, and now they needed to catch it.
Eyelash tutorial. Okay, so in order to do this, you want to start with, the top part of the eye. Kind of just scribble it out. That's what I do. Then when you're making lashes, you kind of want to, okay, you can see the other drawing, but you kind of want to go upwards, make 2 of them, and make them meet like this. Make sure they're touching like that. So you kind of flick your pencil up like this. Like this. You can make them bigger too, or shorter. And there you go.
This is why you should always keep your head on a swivel. In 2017, an elderly woman who lived alone thought she saw something moving in her backyard and went to the window to have a look. As she's looking around, a shadowy figure emerges right on the other side of the glass, standing in her backyard. Terrified, she keeps an eye on the figure while calling police, but by the time she hangs up, the figure's gone. When the police arrive, her front door is unlocked, so they go inside and they find her still sitting in front of the window looking for this figure. The police search the backyard, but they don't find anything. When the police go back inside to search the house, they quickly find some large footprints that couldn't have been hers in the room that she was sitting in and all around the first floor. That's when they realized what was going on. She wasn't seeing a shadowy figure in her backyard. She was seeing the reflection of someone in the room with her.
Running away.
911, what's your emergency?
There are demon worshippers in a cul-de-sac.
Are you in immediate danger?
I think so.
Okay, what is the threat?
There's a man pulling dead squirrels out of his hat.
How is that a threat?
The kids are singing devil songs, whacking a horse effigy. Oh, Lord, they're eating what came out at his head.
Ma'am, do you see any party streamers?
Yes.
Do you see a cake?
You mean a pagan pastry? I do.
That is a child's birthday party. Ma'am?
I'd like to report a hate crime.
A hate crime?
Yes, I was not invited to my neighbor's kid's party.
All right, well, Paradise is a small town. You are actually not the first person to call about this. The child in question is very popular, but his parents limited the guest list to 20.
I needed to hear that. Thank you.
These are pretty cool, but it's the plot twist at the end that's gonna get you. You wake up stranded on a deserted island, and now you need to go find drinkable water. So where are some places we can find that? You look around the island and you notice a whole bunch of coconut trees, and you think, well, people drink coconut water, I'll just drink that until I get rescued. Except if you only drink coconut water and don't supplement it with another water source, you will develop wicked diarrhea and will die of dehydration. So you start looking for an alternative source of water. And you remember from that documentary about cannibals that it is safe to drink your own blood. So you cut your arm open, you start drinking your own blood, but what you failed to understand is only in small doses is that okay. Beyond a couple teaspoons, and you'll develop something called hemochromatosis, which results in your lungs filling with fluid, and you basically drown from the inside out. This is why you should be very careful who you talk to online. A 16-year-old girl was home with her mom when she got a disturbing text message from a boy she had recently met on Snapchat. He told her he was right outside of her house, but when she went to look, no one was there. Frightened, she decides to sleep in her mom's room that night, and right before she goes to bed, she gets another text from the boy that just says, "I'm in your house." She shows her mom, who immediately searches the whole house, checks every door, turns on every light. There's no one there. So even though they're creeped out, they go back to bed. The next morning, she gets up and she goes back to her bedroom and immediately feels like she's being watched. She checks in her closet, looks behind her door, there's no one there. Then she noticed that the shoe boxes she normally kept perfectly arranged next to her bed had been moved. So she crouches down to put them back in order, and then out of the corner of her eye, she notices something. The boy who was texting her was... This is why you should be very careful who you talk to online. A 16-year-old girl was home with her mom when she got a disturbing text message from a boy she had recently met on Snapchat. He told her he was right outside of her house, but when she went to look, no one was there. Frightened, she decides to sleep in her mom's room that night, and right before she goes to bed, she gets another text from the boy that just says, "I'm in your house." She shows her mom, who immediately searches the whole house, checks every door, turns on every light. There's no one there. So even though they're creeped out, they go back to bed. The next morning, she gets up and she goes back to her bedroom and immediately feels like she's being watched. She checks in her closet, looks behind her door, there's no one there. Then she noticed that the shoe boxes she normally kept perfectly arranged next to her bed had been moved. So she crouches down to put them back in order, and then out of the corner of her eye, she notices something. The boy who was texting her was... This true story is so simple and so creepy. On June 21st, 2009, a 16-year-old wakes up to an empty house around 11 a.m. He heads downstairs, grabs a snack, and goes to the basement and plans on watching TV for the next few hours until he meets his friend around 3. About 30 minutes later, his mom comes downstairs and asks him, "Where have you been all day?" Confused, he says, "I've only been up for like 30 minutes. And then he looks at his phone, and it's after 7 o'clock at night. There's dozens of missed calls and several text messages from his friend and his mom asking, "Where are you?" He tells his mom that none of this makes any sense, but what she tells him is even worse. She said that she was there all day and saw him go into the basement at 11, but after that, he was gone all day. So for one day in the summer of 2009, this kid didn't exist. Remember, your Amazon Alexa is always listening. In 2018, a girl named Alexa came home to her apartment to find her creepy stalker landlord in her kitchen. She screams and threatens to call the cops, and he just smiles and says, "I was just checking in on you," and leaves. Feeling totally sketched out, she spends the next few hours down the hall in her friend's apartment before finally going back to her room to go to bed. That night, she woke up to her Amazon Alexa responding to someone in the room. It said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Did you say I'm watching you?" The girl instantly turns on her lights and looks around, but no one's there. So she unplugs Alexa and is about to go back to sleep when she hears what sounds like a man grunting in her closet. As she's staring at her closet, her Alexa turns back on.
Got pulled over today, and the cop comes to my window and goes, "License, registration, and proof of insurance." And I look at him, I say, "Officer, I don't have my license on me, I don't have my registration, I don't have any proof of insurance." So then the cop looks at me and goes, "And why the hell were you speeding? I caught you going 90 and a 65. And I look at him and I say, "Officer, the reason I was speeding was because I just killed my girlfriend. I chopped her up and I put her in my trunk." So the cop backs off my window, says, "Listen, boy, wait right here." And he calls every cop in the area to come look at my car. So my car is now surrounded by cops, and the chief of police does a whole check. He checks my trunk, and all he finds is a backpack. So then he comes to my window. So the chief of police comes up to my window and says, "Listen, the officer who pulled you over said you had no driver's license, no proof of insurance, no registration, and that you just chopped up your girlfriend and put her in the trunk. But when I looked in the trunk, all I found was a backpack. I found nothing." And I look at the chief of police and I say, "Yeah, I know. This lying son of a bitch probably told you I'm speeding too, right?"
Who found Coraline-like doors in their own houses. Except it didn't take them to another world, it took them to places much creepier. In 2015, there was this couple who bought a new house, and they found this tiny secret door disguised in their bookcase. So they were super intrigued and even excited. They were thinking maybe it would lead them to some hidden treasure or money. But as they were going through the passageway, they found a note that read, "If you're reading this, then you found the secret room." But instead of something exciting, it said, "It's filled with black mold." The walls inside this secret room were covered. There was so much of it that the previous owner and his children were constantly getting sick from it. So the couple immediately packed their things, left the house, making sure to sue the agent who sold them the mold-infested house in the first place.
Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? In this series, I'm going to draw each fairy tale and tell you the original scary stories they were based on. First, we have the Grimm's version of Snow White. Now, we all know how the story begins. The evil queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty, so she banished her into the woods. But the evil queen actually wanted to eat Snow White's liver and lungs with salt and pepper. The huntsman spared her and gave a boar's liver and lungs to the queen, which she eats. But the darkest part, which you might not know about, is how Snow White actually got revenge. Snow White and the prince got married, and they invited the evil queen. Or should I say, tricked the evil queen into attending because they knew that she'd feel jealous enough to do it. And the evil queen actually fell for it. She arrived at Snow White and the prince's wedding, only to find out that they put a pair of iron shoes into burning coals until it heated up and glowed bright red. Then they placed it in front of the evil queen and made her wear those shoes until she danced to her death.
This is why you should always watch what you say in public. In the late 1970s, a man began breaking into homes in order to assault the families inside of them. After dozens of attacks and no suspects in custody, the citizens were totally on edge, so the police decide to host this town hall meeting so they can discuss the situation out in public. During the meeting, a local man stands up and says, "I would totally kick that guy's ass if he came anywhere near my wife." Then, in a crazy, ironic turn of events, that angry man and his wife become the next victims. Following their assault, the attacker completely changes his behavior. He goes from kind of petty home invader to full-blown serial killer, targeting only married men and their wives. When decades later, police finally identified Joseph D'Angelo as the killer, this is why you should always take your lockdown drills seriously. In 2017, two 16-year-olds were in their school bathroom when the lights suddenly went out and their school went into lockdown. Feeling rebellious, they decide, you know what, let's go explore the school a little bit first, and then we'll go follow procedure. They step out of the bathroom and look down the hall towards their classroom, and they see this large figure standing in front of their classrooms. It's definitely not a student, it's not a teacher. He's got ragged clothes on, and he starts walking towards them. They dart right back into the bathroom to the corner stall where they hide, praying that that man didn't see them. The man bursts in and starts yanking open all the stalls. Not wanting to see what happens when he gets to their stall, they get on the ground and start crawling to the side of the room where they finally get up and make a run for the door. They look back and he's holding a gun. The boys manage to get away safely and no one's hurt, but the police never capture the ragged man.
So Copic sent me one of their Copic crate mystery boxes, and I was so happy to receive it because these are like the best markers out there. Anyways, look at these little baby Copic markers. Oh my gosh, look how cute they are. They're so small. But yeah, these are some of the things I got on my Copic crate mystery box. Got some multi-liners, markers, and swatch cards, and this cute little book here. It's like a little guide on how to use the markers. Each Copic crate guarantees that every recipient receives at least 60 worth of items, but its contents can be worth up to $400. Right now, the box is at $35. The sale will end November 20th, and I have a 5% off code down below in the caption if you'd like to use it for your Copic crate. And yeah, link to the box is on my bio. And also, let me know who you guys want me to draw with these markers.
You know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? In this series, I'm going to draw each fairy tale and tell you the original scary stories they were based on. Today, we're going to talk about Rapunzel. So in the original, Rapunzel's dad stole herbs from the witch's garden for his wife, and when he got caught, he agreed to give Rapunzel to the witch. Rapunzel is then trapped in the witch's tower, until one day a prince hears her singing in the tower, so she lets her hair down. This is the part we all grew up hearing about, but things take a much darker turn from here. The prince visits Rapunzel in secret, and the witch only finds out when Rapunzel gets pregnant and can't hide it anymore. In a fit of rage, the witch cuts Rapunzel's hair and uses it to lure the prince back into the tower. There, she throws him off and into a bush of thorns, which blinds him. After that, the prince ends up wandering around the country for years. But then Rapunzel, who's now a mother to twins, eventually finds him. When they reunite, Rapunzel's tears heal the prince's eyes.
A young man bought a horse from a farmer for $2,000 and the farmer agrees and said, "I'll drop it off tomorrow." The next day, the farmer shows up and says, "Sorry, son, I have some bad news. The horse died." Tommy replied, "Just give me my money back." The farmer says, "I can't. I already spent it." Tommy replied, "Okay then, just bring me the dead horse." The farmer was surprised and said, "Why? What are you going to do with him?" Tommy replied, "I'm going to raffle him off." The farmer laughs at him and says, "You can't raffle off a dead horse." Tommy says, "Sure I can. I just won't tell them the horse is dead." A week later, the farmer sees Tommy in town and asks him, "What happened to the dead horse? Did you raffle him off?" Tommy said, "Sure I did. I sold 500 tickets for $50 apiece and made $25,000. The farmer was shocked and said, "Did anyone complain?" Tommy replied, "Just the guy who won. I gave him his money back."
When my grandfather was younger, he was convicted of a crime that he didn't do, and the judge sentenced him to death row. But when it came day to kill my grandfather talked his way out of the whole situation. So when execution day came for my grandfather, there was actually two guys in front of him who were going to be killed first. So the guards asked the first guy who was going to be killed, they said, "What do you want as your last meal?" The guy says, "Oh, I want a big juicy steak." So they give him the steak, he eats it, and then after he eats it, the guards just kill him immediately. So the guards ask the same question to the second guy getting executed. They say, "What do you want as your last meal?" The guy says, "Oh, I want a big lobster." So they give him the lobster, he eats it, and once he eats it, they kill him. So then it came my grandfather's turn to be executed, and they ask him, "What do you want to eat as your last meal?" My grandfather looks at the guards and goes, "I want a big bowl of strawberries." The guards look at him and go, "Strawberries? Those are out of season." So then my grandfather goes, "Don't worry about it. I don't mind waiting at all."
This is a highly controversial topic. In 2016, a man posted on Facebook that the local police were going to kill him that weekend. That weekend, he died under very suspicious circumstances that we will get to. Immediately following his death, his YouTube page, which contained footage from his home's camera system, went viral. One of his videos shows a large group of police officers standing in front of his house for no apparent reason in the middle of the night. Others show what he claims to be plainclothes police officers casing his property. But the most talked about video is the one where the van shows up in front of his house, revealing a guy with a fairly high-tech camera who just starts filming his house. The man was found dead in his home after it had burned down, and he was found to have stab wounds on his back and his stomach. His death was determined to be self-inflicted. However, the debate rages on online. What happened to John Lang?
Pants tutorial. Another one. Start with a curved line across the waist. Then add a rectangle facing upwards. Add a line going across the rectangle thingy and add a circle inside. Then draw the more rectangle thingies on each side of the pants. Add the pockets by drawing a curved line going down and to the side. Then draw the sideways V lines. Make wrinkles in the pants by doing random curvy lines. Make sure the wrinkles do not look the same. Yay! On the bottom of the pants, make sure they kinda fold over the shoe. Why did he say kinda like that? Anyways, add details such as shading and more wrinkles, and you're done.
Shit for the clicks, but the whole not paid though. I'm okay though. I'm in the trap with a bad bitch and a bad bitch might put me off foot though. I'm Johnny on the spot. I'll hook you up. Now sounds to the payroll. Doing that shit for the clicks, but the whole not paid though. I'm doing that shit, I'm doing it. Motherfucking not paid, so I'm losing it. If you wanna make bread, stop using it. Yeah. Living this life like a movie. Now your bitch tryna do me like Scooby. Why the fuck do you act so fruity? Yeah. Bitches on my line.
Upgrading my Apple Pencil and iPad.
So this kid falls in love with a beautiful girl. He goes to his dad. He says, "Dad, I think I'm in love. I just met the greatest girl." And the dad goes, "Well, great. Who is it?" He said, "Well, you know our neighbor's daughter, Susan, from up the street? Yeah, it's her." The dad goes, "Wish you hadn't said that. Don't tell your mom, but she's actually your sister." And so the kid can't date her and is naturally bummed out until a couple months later he goes back to his dad even more excited. He says, "Dad, I found a better girl. I'm in love. She's prettier. She's funnier. She's smart. We click." And the dad goes, "Well, that's great, son. Who is it?" He says, "It's our neighbor's daughter, Angela, from up the street." And the dad says, "Okay, well, here's the thing. She's your sister too, so you can't date her." And the kid's pissed off at this point. This happens 5 or 6 more times. And he goes to his mom crying. He says, "Mom, I can't date anyone because whoever I pick is Dad's daughter, which makes them my sister." And the mom hugs her son and she says, "Oh, you could date whoever you want. Don't worry, he's not your father."
Man escapes prison after 15 years, then breaks into a house to look for money. He finds a couple in bed, orders the guy out of bed, and ties him to a chair. The escaped prisoner then ties the wife to the bed and jumps on top of her, and it looks like he kissed her, then gets up and goes to the bathroom and closes the door. While he's in the bathroom, the husband whispers over to his wife, "Hey, he's an escaped convict. Look at his clothes. He's probably spent a lot of time in jail and hasn't seen a woman in years. I saw the way he kissed your neck. If he wants anything, don't resist, don't complain, just go with it. Satisfy him no matter what. This guy is obviously dangerous, and if he gets angry, he'll kill us both. Be strong, honey, and I love you." His wife looks at him, smiles, and says, "He wasn't kissing my neck. He was whispering in my ear. He told me that he likes men and thinks you're cute and asked me where the Vaseline was. I told him it was in the bathroom. Be strong, honey, and I love you."
This is why you should always trust your gut. In the 1970s, a young couple decided to go for a late night hike in the woods. A couple minutes into their walk, and the man remembers thinking something's not right. He tells his girlfriend, but they just decide to ignore it and keep going, until he steps on something that felt really soft, like it was alive. Before he has a chance to see what he stepped on, they hear all this rustling in the bushes next to them, and they bolt. Years later, that couple turns on the TV, and a death row inmate who's about to be executed is being interviewed. And they ask him, "Was there ever a time that you were almost caught red-handed?" He responded, yes, one time. I was in the woods and a couple walked through and the man actually stepped on the body of a girl I had just killed. I was hiding in the bushes just a few feet away. They didn't see me. That couple had run into one of the worst serial killers of all time, Ted Bundy. This is why you should always be scared of clowns. In 2004, a babysitter had just sat down to watch TV before the parents got back when she noticed something. In the corner of the room was a large clown statue that, no matter how she positioned herself, seemed like it was staring right at her. As she's looking at it, the father calls to check in on the kids. She tells him everything is fine, and right before they're about to hang up, she says, "Why do you have a huge clown statue in your TV room?" There was silence on the phone, and then the father just says, "We don't own a clown statue." She immediately drops the phone, runs upstairs, gets the kids, runs outside, calls the cops. Cops go in and come out with this guy. As the police are taking the clown away, one of the officers comes over to the girl and with a very grim look on his face just says, "We found him underneath one of the kids' beds. He was holding a sharpened screwdriver." This is why you should always be scared of clowns. In 2004, a babysitter had just sat down to watch TV before the parents got back when she noticed something. In the corner of the room was a large clown statue that, no matter how she positioned herself, seemed like it was staring right at her. As she's looking at it, the father calls to check in on the kids. She tells him everything is fine, and right before they're about to hang up, she says, "Why do you have a huge clown statue in your TV room?" There was silence on the phone, and then the father just says, "We don't own a clown statue." She immediately drops the phone, runs upstairs, gets the kids, runs outside, calls the cops. Cops go in and come out with this guy. As the police are taking the clown away, one of the officers comes over to the girl and with a very grim look on his face just says, "We found him underneath one of the kids' beds. He was holding a sharpened screwdriver."
About drawing people. How to draw a skirt less than 3. Start with a curved line going across the waist. Then make a slanted line on both sides of the hips. Then make a longer curved line to make the bottom part of the skirt. Erase. Make thin triangles for the pleats of the skirt. Then draw curved lines to make it look more detailed. Darken the lines to add contrast. Make another curved line on the waist and erase. Draw the waistband by doing the same thing. Add a short line in the middle of the waistband and add a circle. Shade and add details. And voila!
New truck for like a while now. So yesterday I went up to my dad and I said, "Hey Dad, can you buy me that new F-150 they just got at the dealership?" So my dad looks at me and goes, "You know what? I'm going to buy you that truck." And I was so surprised, believe me. He says, "You want me to buy you this truck? Do me one thing. Go into our backyard and list all the types of trees we have in the yard, all right? And come back to me." I was like, "Dad, let me get this straight. You want me to go into our yard and list all the types of trees that we have, like the oaks and the maples and stuff like that?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do. List all the trees, then come back to me and we'll go to the dealership together and we'll buy you that truck." So I go outside and like an hour later, I finally come back. I have a list of like 30 trees, like maples, oaks, pines, evergreens. And I show it to my dad and he looks over the list. So my dad's checking the list and I'm all excited. And then he goes, "You missed one." I go, "Dad, what kind of tree did I miss?" He goes, "You missed the money tree." And I go, "The money tree? We don't have a money tree." Then my dad was like, "Exactly, so don't expect me to buy you a truck."
Can you solve this mystery? This is a story of 6 friends who went to the beach together, but something strange happened. One of their friends decided to dive into the water, then went missing. But things are not as simple as they seem. All the clues to what really happened are hidden in what I'm about to say. So these 6 friends went to the beach and one of them decided it'd be fun to go cliff diving. Let's call him Tom. Tom dove into the water first while all of his other friends watched. Then about half a minute later, when Tom still hadn't come up, his 5 remaining friends followed. But still, even after everyone else came back up and swam to the shore, Tom was still nowhere to be seen. The 5 remaining friends thought the worst must have happened, so they left and tried to move on with their lives. Until the 1-year anniversary of Tom's disappearance. They went back to the same beach to commemorate him. That's when Tom was right there, standing by the water. But something wasn't right. In front of him, right at the edge of the water, were 5 crosses. What really happened here? Can you solve this mystery?
Have Have you ever eaten any of these banned candies? Some of these might actually surprise you. The first one is the Valentine's Day candy hearts. We all remember these. These candies have been around since the early 1900s, but some elementary schools have actually banned children from handing these out in classrooms on Valentine's Day because they think that all the sugar could make kids hyper and harder to control. I feel like this is a really silly reason, but actually so many schools around the world have banned these candies. Then we had something called breakup candies. Years ago in China, they came out with what was called regret medicine, which was in the form of candy and was advertised to make you forget an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend if you had a broken heart. It was literally called breakup medicine, and it was meant to be a joke, like you weren't supposed to take it seriously, but a lot of people were. Like they actually thought it was a real like potion candy.
How to draw an eye plus eyelashes less than 3. Start out with a scribble like arch. Add another arch over that. Draw a weird half circle that's gonna be the eye. Shade it in. For the eyelashes, draw weird curved wispy line thingies. Sorry, I don't know how to explain it. Add more pretty lashes. Add some eyeliner, but only if you want to. Add the bottom part of the eye by making another curved line and then connect it to the corner of the eye. Draw the lower eyelid by copying the shape of this. Add bottom lashes. And add details. There you go.
I'm tired of being I better wash my mouth out with soap. God, I wish I never spoke. Now I gotta wash my mouth out with soap. I feel it coming out my throat. Guess I better wash my mouth out with soap. God, I wish I never spoke.
Everyday ways you're being controlled. You may think that traffic light buttons do something, but many of them are simply placebos. Most of these have been disabled, and they're just to make you think that you're stopping the traffic. In reality, it's all done by timers, and the button does nothing. It's simply the illusion of control. Ever seen those trash cans with separate compartments? They usually have a plastics, paper, and metal one. But most of the time, this all goes into the same place. It's simply an illusion of choice to make you think that they're being eco-friendly. Ever noticed how escalators are placed opposite from one another? This is often the case in malls, where you have to walk through the entire mall to get to the other escalator. Well, this is done on purpose to get you to walk past more storefronts. Ever seen these metal lumps in a city before? Well, they're to stop skateboarders going on the surface. And they also prevent rough sleepers, which is pretty mean.
If you receive a creepy tea party invitation in your mailbox, throw it out right away and don't attend the party. There's a legend about this girl who received a strange invitation. It was sealed with wax, it looked super old, but it didn't say who it was from. It gave an address, a time, and a dress code. But the creepiest part about it is that at the very bottom of the invitation it said, "No +1s allowed, arrive unattended." Obviously her parents were really sketched out, and they told her not to go to this place and to throw out the invitation right away. But the next day her parents went into her bedroom and she was nowhere to be seen. They saw the invitation lying open on her bed, and they knew that she had gone. Now, after this, she was never seen again. And when her family went to the address the tea party was said to be, they arrived at an abandoned old building. It was then found out that multiple people had gone missing that month after receiving a strange tea party invitation.
back to your car and see a random piece of clothing sitting on your windshield, do not touch it. You could be the target of an attack. So the way it works is criminals will put a piece of clothing on your windshield, but they'll actually underneath where you can't see it, they'll loop it around your windshield wiper so that when you go to remove it, you see that it's actually kind of a pain and you start sitting there fiddling with it to try to get it off of your car. And while you're preoccupied, that's when they're waiting for this. They come out and they jump you or they attack you. And so you don't want to do that. So if you see that piece of clothing, it's better to play it safe. Just get in your car, lock your doors, and drive away. If you're from a distance seeing this piece of clothing, then I would suggest not going to your car and getting someone to walk over with you. You're mostly going to see this in like parking garages where the lighting's not great and it's easy for the attackers to hide. There's a bunch of examples of this online, unfortunately, but this is a real thing and you gotta be safe. This is why you should never talk to strangers. In the early 2000s, a young girl was waiting outside her friend's house peeling the bark off of a tree when a strange man approaches her. As he got closer, she could see that he was grinning ear to ear and his face was white as a ghost. He walks right up to her and pinches her on the arm and says, "How would you like it if I peeled your skin off?" Just then, her friend's mom yells for her to come inside and the man walks away. It would be years before the girl's mother would finally tell her who this man really was. Her friend's mom had seen the man pinch her on the arm and had immediately called the police, who quickly rounded this guy up. Plastered all across the inside of his van were dozens of pictures of this girl. But what they found in his storage locker is straight out of a nightmare. In the locker was a chair with hand and arm restraints. Next to it was an anatomy book and hundreds of torture tools.
Look, the summer nights can even turn cold. In the streets of Philly where niggas don't even get to turn old. My heart pumping to a turn gold. You niggas stuck in neutral ride like fuck it, it's a long road. Shit, I'm the one, I'm like a lost soul. In the middle of heaven and hell, see nigga, only God knows. When your time gon' come and your eyes roll straight to the back, then you see it all black. That Mac go ring and then I go back. That's that murder music to rewind you back. Put that Ruger all up to you, watch your mind go splash. All over the wall, nigga, all over that raw. It's the same old me, still the same old G. Got that crack music, listen, let your brain OD. I be playing OP, me and one of my niggas riding through the city, plotting on some of the niggas that be thinking they gon' get me. I'ma run at you niggas, that's a couple dead bodies for a couple of niggas. Yeah, monster, sitting like a monster, revolver on my lap, barrel full.
So yesterday, me and my wife were just chilling on the couch, and all of a sudden I get a text message from my neighbor John. So I opened the text message and it was so disgusting, I wrote it down so I can read it to you guys. This is what it said. "Hey Andreas, it's your neighbor John and I've been feeling so guilty lately that I haven't been able to sleep and I think it's time to confess. I've been helping myself to your wife when you're at work, probably more than you do. It's so incredible and so fun and I haven't been able to contain myself. Sometimes it goes on for hours. I know it's no excuse, but I don't get any at my house. Anyway, I apologize and it won't happen again." So I read the message to my wife and I look at her and I go, "You are a disgusting, cheating tramp. I never want to see you again in my life. I want a divorce and you are nasty, you are grimy, you are disgusting. I don't want to see you again." So right before my wife went to speak, I get another text message from John. So I open the message, it says, "Shit, I really hate autocorrect. I meant to say Wi-Fi."
No one would believe this story if there wasn't a video. In 2013, a rogue wave capsized a tugboat, killing 11 of 12 men on board. The 12th man was flung into the hallway, which was already filled with water. Panicked, he starts swimming towards the exit, but accidentally goes into the engine room where he finds an air pocket. And there this poor man sat, listening to the sounds of these huge sharks fighting over the bodies of his friends just on the other side of the wall. Total darkness, no food or water, 100 feet below the surface. 3 days later, one of the divers that was sent down there to retrieve their bodies sees a hand.
Found one, yeah? He's alive, he's alive. Okay. All right.
Harrison O'Keen survived the ordeal and plans on writing a book.
The father was listening to his daughter pray, "God bless mommy, God bless daddy, God bless grandma, goodbye grandpa." "Honey, why did you say goodbye grandpa?" "I don't know daddy, it just felt right." The next day her grandpa dies and the father just thought it was a strange coincidence. A week later the dad was listening to his daughter pray again. "God bless mommy, God bless daddy, goodbye grandma." The next day the grandma died. The father started thinking, wow, my daughter must be very special. A week later he was listening to his daughter pray again. "God bless mommy, goodbye daddy." He started freaking out and couldn't sleep all night. He left early and went to his office. He was nervous all day and kept watching the clock. He felt safe in his office and figured if he could make it to midnight, he would be okay. Once it hit midnight, he went home. When he went home, his wife said, "I've never seen you work so late. What's the matter?" "I had the worst day of my life." "Yeah, well, my day was worse. The mailman dropped dead on our porch."
I'm Mr. White Christmas. I'm Mr. Snow. I'm Mr. Icicle. I'm Mr. 10 Below. Friends call me Snow Miser. Whatever I touch turns to snow in my clutch. I'm too much. I'm Mr. Green Christmas. I'm Mr. Sun. I'm Mr. Heat Blister. I'm Mr. 101. They call me Heat Miser. Whatever I touch starts to melt in my clutch. I'm too much.
This is why you should always lock your crawl space. In 2019, a young woman had just moved into the second floor of an apartment building. She noticed a tiny crawl space that connected all the apartments on the floor, but she wrote it off, citing, "Who'd be small enough to crawl through that?" One night, she walks into her living room, and out on the fire escape is a tiny woman desperately trying to yank open her locked windows. Terrified, she hides behind some furniture until the woman eventually leaves, at which point she runs into a room, grabs her phone, and calls the police. While waiting for the cops to arrive, she hears something above her and she looks up. One of the ceiling tiles had popped up, and the woman from the fire escape is staring down at her. She'd used the crawl space to get up there. The girl screams and the woman scurries away. It took 3 days for the police to finally get the woman out of the crawl space and bring her into custody. Turns out she was on some unknown...
It must be a magical moment, and that's enough.
If someone offers you this, walk away. In 2016, a man was staying at his friend's cabin in the woods when he decided to go for an evening stroll. A little ways down the trail, he hears someone call out from behind his neighbor's house. He looks up and he sees this skinny guy pop out from behind the building who starts waving frantically at him to come over. Worried this guy could be in trouble, the man takes off running to assist, but when he gets close enough, the neighbor just offers him a fistful of Slim Jims and starts talking about how much he hates his wife. Sensing there was something wrong with this guy, he says no thank you to the Slim Jims and walks away. The next day, the man calls his friend who owned the cabin to ask him what the deal was with his weirdo neighbor. There was silence on the phone, and then his friend just says, "I don't have any neighbors." The police are called, and it turns out his neighbor was really some lunatic who had recently killed his wife and had been hiding out in the abandoned cabin next door.
Psychology facts that'll blow your mind. Have you ever seen something so cute you just want to squeeze it? Well, there's actually a name for that. That's called cuteness aggression, and the reason you have that feeling is you're overwhelmed with positive emotions that showing some aggression helps even out the high from those positive emotions. Food tastes better when someone else cooks it. A study found that when you make food, you're around it longer, so the enjoyment decreases by the time that it's made and you're ready to eat it. Your brain wants you to be lazy. Evolutionarily speaking, conserving energy used to be a good thing, but our brains still do it today. There's a study where they would have people walk on a treadmill and they would automatically adjust their body to burn the least amount of calories. You're programmed to love the music you listened to in high school the most. Listening to music you like releases dopamine and other feel-good chemicals. From the ages of 12 to 22, everything feels more important, so we tend to emphasize everything that happened in those years, and we continue to hang on to those musical memories.
If you ever see a random staircase in the woods, you have to get away as fast as you can. Never climb them. There was a story going around a couple years ago stating that there are abandoned staircases in national forests around the world, like deep, deep in the forest away from anybody. It's just a staircase, no other structure attached to it. Some stairs are in ruins, some are perfectly sturdy, some are iron spirals like the kind you'd find in a lighthouse, and they literally just reach up to nowhere. And there are so many different theories as to why these stairs are there and what actually happens when you climb them. Only a few few have ever dared to climb the staircases, and the people who have report feeling unnerved and unwelcome or even nauseous when they're up on the stairs. Some people say the stairs lead to another dimension, other people say it leads to hell. Others say that's why so many people and kids go missing in national forests, because they climb these stairs and they're never seen again.
Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. In 2010, a couple renting a cabin in the middle of the woods finds the guest logbook tucked underneath the bed in the bedroom. After reading through it, they decide to call the cops. The final 5 entries are all by the same man. The first 2 are just talking about how great it is to be on vacation with his girlfriend. Then it starts to get weird. In the 3rd entry, he describes a stranger lurking in the tree line that doesn't respond to his waves. In the 4th entry, he hears knocking on the windows in the middle of the night, but no one's there. In his 5th and final entry, his handwriting is barely legible, and it just says, "It's in the bathroom, we're going to die." The police show up and find the girlfriend's body in the basement. Next to her body was her purse, and in her purse was her phone. When they open it up, they see that she texted her mother one last time, and it just says, "Mike's starting to act crazy. I think he's off his meds again." This is why you should always sleep with your lights on. In 1991, a man named Christopher Case was found dead in his bathtub, fully clothed in the fetal position. When police interviewed his best friend Sammy, she told them about a very disturbing phone call she got from him the night before he died. On the call, he told her that the previous night he had woken up to what sounded like whispering coming from underneath his bed. When he went to look, he couldn't move. As he laid helplessly, he watched a black figure pull itself out from underneath his bed. Once it was fully upright, it reached down and began choking him until he passed out. The next morning when he came to, he felt his neck and it was swollen and bruised. And then he saw blood on his hands and he saw that there were deep, uniform incisions on each of his fingertips. As he's saying all this to Sammy and telling her how scared he is to go to bed that night, he suddenly stops and he says, "I hear whispering outside my room." Then the phone went dead. I used some of the original footage, so please be advised. In the early 2000s, a video was discovered inside one of the scariest places on Earth. It's called the Catacombs, and it's one of the world's largest mass graves. To get to it, you need to wriggle through these claustrophobia-inducing tunnels hundreds of feet below the city of Paris. The video was found miles and miles into one of the least explored sections of the catacombs. The video is largely uneventful until he starts following these arrows that he sees on the wall and that he sees on the ground. And these arrows bring him to these rooms that are completely full of human bones, which catacombs experts have no idea where they are. Like, they don't know where this is. Then out of nowhere, something spooks him and he starts sprinting deeper and deeper into the catacombs until he drops his camera. And then all you hear is his panic breathing and footsteps as he disappears. While nobody knows what actually happened to this guy, everybody seems to agree that the footage is authentic.
She almost lost her eye because of me. Story time. So in college, I used to have the worst roommate because she would always take my stuff without my permission and then not return it. And I would always tell her, like, "Hey, I don't care if you use my stuff, but at least ask me so I know, you know?" She didn't care though. She continued to use my stuff anyway. Now, one of the things she constantly took from me were my eye drops, which was super annoying because in college my eyes were constantly dry from like staying up late and doing homework and things like that. So I told her, like, when you use my eye drops, please put them back because I need them. But of course she did not listen to me and continued to take them without putting them back. So I did what anybody would do. I dumped out all my eye drops and replaced it with superglue. But I did tell her, like, "Hey, this is not eye drops, this is superglue, so don't use it." And she didn't